Hi, I'm Vivian, and I just discovered what my stepfamily had been planning all along. My Uncle Charles left me everything in his will. Marcus and Patricia shredded the documents right in front of me, then fed them into their industrial paper shredder. They screamed, "This is what you get for never fitting in." But I didn't flinch. I didn't even try to stop them because what they destroyed wasn't what they thought, and what they never saw coming was who Uncle Charles really trusted with his legacy. I hadn't worn my good blazer in months, but I put it on that morning, mostly because it made me feel like the travel writer I actually was instead of the unwanted stepdaughter they saw. Something about having my press credentials in the pocket gave me confidence, like I was documenting a story instead of living through one. Not that anyone cared. Not Patricia, who looked through me like I was a stranger at her dinner table. Not Marcus, who gave me that fake smile he'd perfected over 18 years. And definitely not Jade, who sat there scrolling through her phone like she was posting about this whole thing in real time. Benjamin Crawford, Charles's international lawyer, cleared his throat and gestured for everyone to sit. "We're here to execute the final wishes of Charles Morrison," he began, his accent crisp and professional, he said. "Per his explicit instructions, all household members are present." I sat in the chair by the window, naturally. Always separate from their little circle. Charles's study still smelled like his pipe tobacco and old books. I focused on that familiar scent to keep my hands steady. Across the mahogany desk, Patricia twisted her wedding ring nervously. Marcus drummed his fingers against his knee. Jade finally looked up from her phone, probably sensing something important was about to happen. When Mr. Crawford opened the leather portfolio, she actually leaned forward like she was expecting good news. "Charles has made very specific arrangements," Mr. Crawford said, unfolding a thick document. "To Marcus Reed, his brother-in-law, he leaves his collection of diplomatic artifacts and his library of international law texts," he said. Marcus nodded like that was exactly what he'd expected. "To Patricia Morrison Reed, he leaves his grandmother's jewelry collection and the oil painting of the Swiss Alps," Ms. Crawford said. Patricia's smile flickered. "That's lovely, but what about the properties?" she asked. Mr. Crawford continued without acknowledging her question. "To Jade Reed, he leaves his vintage camera collection and his travel photography portfolio," Ms. Crawford said. Jade blinked. "Wait, just cameras?" Jake asked. "And to Vivian Morrison," Mr. Crawford paused, looking directly at me, "he leaves his entire estate, including all international assets, trust funds, and property holdings, valued at approximately $38 million. The room went dead silent. Marcus's face went white, then red. "What did you just say?" Mr. Crawford's voice remained steady. "The will was updated and notarized 6 months ago during Charles's final visit to Geneva. It was witnessed by 2 Swiss attorneys," Mr. Crawford said. "That's impossible," Patricia stammered. "She's not even really family. She barely spoke to Charles. She moved out at 18 and hardly visits," she said. Marcus shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. Some little travel blogger doesn't get to waltz in here and claim a fortune built on decades of diplomatic service," he said. Mr. Crawford reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope with my name written in Charles's familiar handwriting. The wax seal bore his personal stamp, the same mountain peak design he'd carved during his posting in Nepal. My hands trembled slightly as I took it. Inside was a letter written on his personal stationery and a single key. "Vivian, you were the only one who ever asked about my work, my travels, my stories. While they calculated my worth, you saw my worth. The real documents are where we used to hide our Christmas presents. Love, Charles." Before I could read it again, Marcus lunged across the desk and grabbed the letter from my hands. "What does this say?" he demanded. "Give that back," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. He ignored me, scanning the words. Patricia snatched the envelope. "Saw my worth? You mean you manipulated a lonely old man," she said. She tore the letter in half, then quarters, letting the pieces flutter to the Persian rug. Jade stood up, her phone already recording. "Seriously, Vivian? You think Charles actually cared about your little travel articles? He felt sorry for you because nobody else did," she said. "That's not true," I started to say. But Marcus was already reaching for his document shredder on the credenza. "This whole thing is a sham," he announced. "Mr. Reed," Mr. Crawford warned, rising from his chair. "I'm not letting some ungrateful stepdaughter destroy everything Charles worked for," Marcus snarled. He fed the torn letter pieces into the shredder, the machine whirring as it consumed Charles's words. Then he grabbed the envelope and the key, shoving them in after the letter. "There," he said, his voice shaking with fury. "Now we're back to reality." I sat perfectly still. I didn't move. Didn't protest. Patricia crossed her arms, satisfaction written across her face. "This is what happens when you try to take advantage of family grief," she said coldly. "You weren't even here when Charles was sick in the hospital," she said. Jade added, still filming, "Now you want to act like you were his favorite?" I remained motionless, watching the last pieces of paper disappear into the shredder blades. But what they didn't know was that the letter they destroyed was a copy. What they had just shredded was a blank template I'd found in Charles's desk the week after his funeral. He'd warned me during our last video call that they might try to destroy whatever they couldn't control, told me they'd want to eliminate any evidence of his true wishes. So we'd planned for exactly this moment. The real documents, the actual will, and all the access codes were safely stored in the old toy chest in his basement, the same place we used to hide birthday presents when I was little. The folder with my real inheritance was still locked away where only I knew to look. So I smiled. Not the polite smile I'd worn at family dinners for 18 years. The kind of smile that comes when you finally understand the game was rigged from the start, but you've been playing by different rules all along. They'd always treated me like the outsider, the charity case, the stepdaughter who didn't belong. Let them keep thinking that. Let them believe they'd won. I stood slowly, straightening my blazer, and walked toward the door. No angry words. No dramatic gestures. Just the soft sound of my shoes on the hardwood floor, each step more confident than the last. Outside, the crisp autumn air filled my lungs, but I didn't feel cold. I got in my car, placed my notebook on the passenger seat, and opened the small travel journal Charles had given me for my birthday. Inside the back cover, taped carefully in place, was a copy of the real letter. On the first page, he'd written in his precise handwriting, "Let them destroy what they can see. The real treasure is always hidden in plain sight." By the time I pulled into the private banking center downtown, the afternoon sun had burned through the morning clouds. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, watching business people hurry past on the sidewalk. There was something surreal about the normalcy of the day, considering what I was about to discover. Inside the gleaming lobby, Mr. Hartwell greeted me with the same professional courtesy he'd shown since Charles first brought me here as a teenager. He was already waiting by the executive elevator. "Miss Morrison," he nodded, gesturing toward the secure upper floors. "Everything has been prepared according to Mr. Charles's detailed instructions." We rode up in comfortable silence. I was grateful he didn't try to make conversation. My mind was still processing what had happened in the study. When the vault door clicked open, it wasn't the sterile air conditioning or the hushed atmosphere that made my heart race. It was knowing that Charles had planned for this exact moment. Mr. Hartwell led me to a private viewing room and activated a biometric scanner. "Your uncle registered your fingerprint last year," he explained. "Take all the time you need." "I'll be just outside," I said. I sat in the leather chair, staring at the sleek metal box that had just unlocked. 3 months ago, Charles had called me during one of my assignments in Prague. His voice sounded different, more urgent than usual. I remember every word of that conversation. "Vivian, I need you to remember something important. When you get back to Chicago, don't let anyone know about our arrangement. The access code is your father's birthday, the real one, not the one Patricia thinks she knows. Can you remember that?" I thought it was just another one of his diplomatic precautions. Now I understood it was something much more serious. As I entered the code, my hands barely trembling, I whispered the date under my breath. April 15th. Inside the security box were 4 items that would change everything. An encrypted tablet, a thick folder marked with the Swiss embassy seal, a small velvet jewelry box, and a handwritten letter with my name on expensive stationery. The tablet powered on immediately, recognizing my biometrics. Charles's familiar face appeared on the screen, recorded in what looked like his Geneva office, with the Alps visible through the window behind him. If you're watching this, Vivian, then they've shown their true colors. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I've been watching Marcus and Patricia for years. I know what they did after your father died. I saw how they slowly erased every trace of him from the house, how they made you feel like a guest in your own home. His voice was steady, but I could see the sadness in his eyes. They think diplomatic service is just about fancy parties and connections. They never understood that it's about protecting what matters most. And you, my dear niece, have always mattered most to me. He leaned closer to the camera. Your travel writing isn't just a career. TT's a gift. You see the world the way your father did, with curiosity and compassion. That's why I've made sure you'll have the freedom to keep exploring, to keep telling stories that matter. My throat tightened as he continued. The documents in this box include access to accounts in 3 countries, property deeds for the houses in Vermont and Tuscany, and something special from your grandmother's collection. But more importantly, there's a network of contacts. Other diplomats, journalists, publishers who believe in the kind of work you do. The video paused for a moment as Charles gathered his thoughts. I should have protected you better when you were younger. I should have challenged Marcus's behavior, called out Patricia's coldness. I was too diplomatic, too careful. But I'm not being careful anymore. He smiled then, the same warm smile I remembered from childhood visits. This is your inheritance, but it's also your independence. Don't let them make you small. Don't let them convince you that you don't belong somewhere. You belong everywhere you choose to go. The screen went dark, and I sat in that climate-controlled room for a long time, just breathing. The tablet, the documents, the jewelry box, none of it could give me back the years of feeling unwanted. It couldn't erase the Christmas mornings when Jade got designer clothes while I got gift cards. It couldn't undo the college graduation where Marcus and Patricia sat in the back row, checking their phones. Later that evening, back in my small apartment, I placed the destroyed envelope from the study on my kitchen counter. The one they thought had contained everything important. I opened the jewelry box Charles had left for me and found my grandmother's sapphire pendant, the one Patricia had always claimed was lost after my father died. The one I'd watched her wear to charity galas for the past 10 years. I wrapped the real documents carefully in my father's old Columbia University sweatshirt, the one item of his that I'd managed to save when they cleaned out his belongings. Then I sat at my laptop and opened the secure folder Charles had prepared. Inside were travel assignments from magazines I'd only dreamed of working with, press credentials for international conferences, and letters of recommendation from ambassadors around the world. One memory surfaced as I scrolled through the opportunities. Last Christmas, when I'd shown Jade my published article about refugee camps in Lebanon, she'd laughed. Vivian's always trying to save the world, she told her friends. It's like she thinks her little blog posts actually matter, she said. Marcus had nodded along. She'll grow out of it when she realizes she needs a real job. I'd stayed quiet then, like I always did. Now, looking at Charles's carefully curated collection of my future, I whispered something different. I'm done being quiet. I uploaded the encrypted files to 3 separate cloud servers, printed backup copies of the legal documents, and stored everything in the fireproof safe I'd installed last month. Then I made coffee, opened my laptop to the travel magazine's website, and started typing my next article. They thought they'd eliminated the competition. They had no idea they'd just set me free. For the first time in years, I was sleeping peacefully. I'd finally stopped waiting for permission to exist. At 6:45 a.m., Jade called with fake cheer. Maybe we could get coffee? Just catch up? She said. Curiosity won out. Fine. 11 o'clock. Bean There Cafe, I said. At the cafe, Jade had claimed our old corner table, laptop open, designer coat draped perfectly. Her Instagram smile was too bright. You look good, she said. I saw your National Geographic piece. Really impressive. Then came the real agenda. Patricia's struggling since Charles died. She's barely eating. They feel like you vanished after the funeral, she said. I let the silence work. Even Charles worried you were too independent, she continued. Did Charles tell you that, or did someone else? I asked directly. Her jaw tightened. That envelope with all the shredded papers, was any of it actually important? Marcus thinks we should handle it as a family, she said. There it was. There's nothing left to handle, I said. It's all destroyed. Her smile disappeared. Patricia's talked to a lawyer about contesting whatever Charles left you. She has documentation about how you never integrated into our family, she said. I stood to leave. She's welcome to try, I said. No anger in my voice. Just fact. I walked away without looking back. After my disastrous coffee with Jade, I found an envelope taped to my door. The note inside read, "What they destroyed wasn't the real inheritance. Visit the deposit box at First National tomorrow. Ask for Mrs. Chen." In my old jewelry box, I found a silver key Charles had given me at graduation with cryptic words about seeing the world as it really is. At First National, Mrs. Chen led me to a vault. Your uncle opened this account for you 3 years ago. Inside box 247, a certified check for $42 million, legal documents from multiple countries, my grandmother's lost a jewelry collection, and Charles's letter explaining everything was mine by right, not charity. His video message appeared on a tablet. The documents establish your ownership of properties in 4 countries, plus investment accounts and a network of diplomatic contacts. Your stepfamily never understood that love isn't about blood and it's about seeing someone clearly and supporting their dreams. The money was life-changing, but more importantly, it was freedom. Charles's postscript read, "Check your front door tonight. Grace will leave you the final piece." At home, I found another envelope under my doormat. Across the street, a silver-haired woman watched, waved, then walked to a waiting car. My real education was just beginning. Outside First National, I noticed a woman across the street watching me. Middle-aged, blonde hair, expensive navy coat. But what made my skin crawl was her emerald scarf with gold trim and embroidered initials, PM. Patricia Morrison, my mother's scarf she'd claimed was stolen. This woman was tracking me with the focus of someone being paid to watch. I ducked into Starbucks, slipped out the back exit, and lost her in the alleys. At the Chicago Public Library, I checked Charles's secure email. One message stood out from Consulting. They don't want your money. They want to eliminate proof you have legal standing. Check your father's house property records. The attachment showed a deed transfer. My childhood home now belonged to Marcus Reed. The signature looked exactly like mine, but I'd never signed it. The notary was fake, the address a UPS store. My phone rang. You found the email, didn't you? It was Grace, Charles's assistant who'd disappeared after his funeral. This isn't about inheritance anymore, Vivian. They're systematically erasing your legal identity. Marcus has connections in city records. Get to Cook County Records Office. I left something there, she said. The line went dead. At home, I searched my name online. According to Cook County Records, Vivian Morrison had died in a car accident 3 weeks ago. I was reading my own obituary. According to official documents, I was already dead. At the Cook County Records Office, I showed the clerk my death certificate. This isn't a database error, she said, studying the screen. Someone with proper authorization filed this through the state registrar's office, she said. Family members? I asked. Usually, she confirmed. At the Social Security office, the clerk typed my information, then stopped. Your number shows as inactive. That only happens when someone is confirmed deceased, she said. I tried my banking app. It said, account not found. Credit card, account suspended. They'd erased me from existence. I remembered Charles's warning. When power is threatened, it eliminates the threat entirely. Makes it so the threat never existed at all. I checked into a cash motel under a fake name and watched Charles's emergency video. They think they've buried you, my dear. But sometimes the best way to win is to let enemies believe they've won while you rebuild from underneath. Grace has been documenting everything. She knows how to fight systematic erasure, he said in the video. Looking in the cracked mirror, I was exhausted but determined. I wasn't the same person from a week ago. Time to dig my way out, I said. And I meant it. I barely slept at the cheap motel. Charles's voice from the video kept echoing in my head. He'd known this moment would come. I left before dawn and drove to the address Grace had given me. Morrison Secure Storage. My father's name. Charles hadn't chosen this randomly. I found Unit 23C at the back of the complex. Inside sat a black fireproof safe with my name on it and Charles's note, for when they try to make you disappear. The combination worked. Inside was everything they'd tried to destroy. My original birth certificate, school records, medical files, proof I'd existed before Marcus. A digital recorder held Charles's voice. They threatened to have me declared incompetent. I've been documenting everything. Every conversation, every threat, every lie. The folder contained emails between Marcus and Patricia discussing the Vivian problem, bank records showing payments to fake notaries, and a draft of my death certificate with Marcus's handwritten notes about bribing officials. At the bottom was Elena Rodriguez's business card. International legal advocate. She specializes in cases like yours. I called immediately. I've been waiting for your call, she said. Can you be here at 3? She asked. As I repacked everything, Jade's voicemail arrived. I didn't know how far they'd take this. I found the real paperwork in Marcus's office. I'm scared they're planning to get rid of me too. I want to help. I saved the message but didn't call back yet. Driving downtown, I knew Marcus and Patricia thought they'd buried me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I stepped out of the storage facility into the sunlight, feeling like I'd emerged from a tomb. The documents in my bag represented everything. Evidence, truth, proof I wasn't crazy. I drove to Elena Rodriguez's office in a glass tower downtown. She was exactly what I'd expected from Charles's colleague. Silver hair, expensive suit, intelligent eyes. Charles spoke of you often, she said. Your stepfather has been busy. Marcus filed paperwork to have you declared missing. But Charles prepared for this, she said. She slid documents across the table. He filed a backup will 6 months ago. If his primary will was contested or you were declared dead, everything goes to an international trust in your name. Swiss accounts, Italian properties. All protected under international law. She showed me Charles's video deposition. If Vivian is watching this, then Marcus and Patricia have revealed their true nature. I've built you a fortress they can't touch. Elena has FBI contacts. What they've done is federal fraud, he said in the video. Elena outlined the plan. Restore my legal status using international documents, file FBI complaints, let Marcus think he's winning while building the case. She handed me Agent Sarah Kim's card. In the meantime, let them celebrate online. Every public statement while knowing you're alive is additional conspiracy evidence, she said. Walking to my car, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Confidence. Charles had taught me how to dig my way back. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. Not from nerves. Those had burned away when Marcus and Patricia celebrated my supposed death online. What kept me awake was certainty. Tomorrow I would end this. Elena Rodriguez met me at the federal courthouse. Last chance to settle quietly, she said. I met her eyes. They've earned every consequence coming, she said. Inside courtroom 7B, Marcus and Patricia sat at the defendant's table. Their third lawyer looked ready to flee. Judge Harrison called the court to order. United States versus Marcus Reed and Patricia Morrison Reed, charges of conspiracy to commit identity theft, wire fraud, and elder abuse. Elena presented Charles's video testimony. His voice filled the courtroom. I'm recording this because I believe my family will attempt to harm my niece, Vivian Morrison, after my death. They have documentation of their plan to forge her death certificate and steal her identity. Elena showed bank records, emails discussing the Vivian problem, phone recordings about hacking government databases. Judge Harrison leaned back. In 40 years on the bench, I've seen every kind of greed. But attempting to murder someone on paper while they're alive represents a new level of cruelty, he said. He looked at Marcus and Patricia. Mr. Reed, 15 years in federal prison. Mrs. Reed, 12 years. All assets are forfeited and returned to the victim, he said. The gavel came down with finality. I stood on Charles's terrace in Tuscany, watching the sunset. The legal battles were over. My identity was restored. Marcus and Patricia were in prison. Jade had testified for immunity and we were slowly rebuilding our relationship. Tomorrow, I would interview with the International Herald Tribune about identity theft. My first major byline would be my own story. Tonight, I just existed. Loudly. Unapologetically. Finally free.